Did the fish survive the big flood? The whole world was flooded. This week's Parsha Noach, and pretty much no one survived except for whoever came onto the big ship that Noach made. Whichever animals he brought on. Did the fish survive? So the pasuk says in Zayin Chav Beis, Mikol Asher Becharava. Everything on dry land died. And the Gemara in Zvachim on Kof Yud Gimel Amud Beis says that yes, specifically everything on the dry land. However, the fish did not die. So the obvious question is, why did the fish not die? So try to provide a few different answers to this question. First, we'll start with what my great-great-grandfather says, with Meshulam Fayir Tzvi Gross in the Sefer Nachla Tzvi on page Yud Zayin. He answers this based on Tosfos in Baba Kama Nun Hey. Tosfos says that the fish didn't cohabit with another type that wasn't like them. Right? The animals on the ground, they were going with other animals that weren't their type, and it was not good. And therefore, those animals, it was decreed upon them that they were going to get destroyed, and the entire world would get destroyed. That's what Tosfos says. However, the question is, what's the difference? Why did the fish only cohabit, stay with their own type? So comes along the Nachal Asfi and he explains, the pasuk says, "Vayar Elokim es haaretz v'hine nishchasa." Hashem saw the land and it was destroyed. It was corrupt. What does this mean? The idea over here says in first parak pasuk Yud Aleph that the land didn't listen to what Hashem said. Hashem said that the land should produce fruit, meaning that the bark and the branches of the tree would actually taste like fruit as well. And it didn't listen. The trees didn't listen. That caused a ripple effect, a negative ripple effect, that everything on the land became corrupt. Because the land sinned, therefore, consequently, as a result, there was a negative domino effect, which caused everything else to become corrupt as well. Because everything is created from the dirt from the land, and that affected everything to get corrupt. So that makes sense. Everything that's on the land sinned, and therefore was swept away by that big flood, was eradicated, destroyed. However, the fish, which were never created from the land itself, and are in their own environment, so to say, aka the water, there's no reason to destroy them. And therefore, that's why they didn't have relations with a type that isn't like them, and therefore, consequently, weren't subject to the decree of the big Mabul of the big flood. That's what my great-great-grandfather says. That is one approach to this idea. Another explanation is as follows. And the truth of the matter is, this is kind of an elaboration on what we just said, on one point that we just said. The Chezkuni in Bereshis Vav Yud Beis, as well as the Mizrahi over there in Zion, explain that they weren't corrupt. Also, the Be'er Shev and Sanhedrin, Kuf Chesem and Aleph says this as well. Based on the pasuk that we just quoted in Vav Yud Beis, Ki Hishchis Kol Basar as Darch Al Aretz, that everything was corrupted on the land, specifically what was created on the land. However, the fish were not. Now, it should be pointed out just one technical point. It wasn't just the fish that survived. It was everything that was in the water survived. With that, we could explain the biggest creature on this planet is a whale. A whale, those things that are such big, nothing, right? Creatures like that are so big, nothing got destroyed during the flood itself. The whales, everything in the water remained. Ramban explains in Bereshis Zayin Chav Beis, quoting the Medrash Rabbah. So the Ramban basically explains that the water that was deeper down was cooler, and therefore that's why they survived, because it was deeper down and it was already cooler over there, and that's how the fish basically survived. That's an important technicality, how to reconcile with the hot water over there versus the cold. So the reason why the Gemara mentions fish, even though all creatures in the water survived, is because fish is something that's just more common, And therefore, that's why the Gemara specifies fish. However, everything, the truth of the matter is, survived that was in the water itself. The Guri Aryeh asks a question. Why didn't the fish get corrupt? Similar to what Nachlasfi was just addressing. So the answer is another explanation is based on what Rashi says on Vav Vav, on the pasuk V'inochim Hashem, that Hashem had nechama, meaning uh, Hashem created mankind from this planet, something that was on this planet, the Tachtonim, what we call. From on this planet, Hashem created mankind, right? Originally, Adam Arishon was created from dirt, not from what's above. And the idea with this is because if Hashem would have created us from angels and in the upper celestial spheres, so what would happen? When we would sin, if we would get corrupt, we would consequently be rebelling against also the creatures above as well. So we would be rebelling against everything over there. And therefore, that's explanation as to why Hashem created us from down below. So all of the other animals sinned as a result of Adam because they were in the same domain. That's the idea. That's why everything sinned. However, the fish, they're in a different domain, and therefore, consequently, they didn't sin. That's the explanation over here. Another explanation. Another idea, and we'll end with this idea, is what the Radak comments on Zayin Chav Beis. The Radak explains that if the fish would have died in that big flood, right, all the fish over there, we wouldn't have any fish today. Now, Hashem didn't want that to happen. Hashem didn't want the world to just turn back to nothingness, right? And therefore, that's the idea. And he said, okay, we have to let the fish survive as well. So that's basically the idea. And furthermore, we see, by the way, as a practical point, that we know that the fish didn't die because they're still around now, right? And that was the place where they lived. So basically, you have numerous explanations over here regarding the fish and why they survive. Practically speaking, you can't bring fish on a big ship, no matter how big the thing is, on the teva, because first of all, you have fresh water, salt water, and second of all, how are you going to maintain that, right? It would have to be done miraculously, and if Hashem doesn't want to perform a miracle, He's not going to go out of His way to do so. Therefore, it's just easier just to let them survive in their natural habitat. Furthermore, there are many types of fish which couldn't fit on that. Whales, the great white sharks, even in aquariums nowadays, they can't make them big enough to enable, if I'm not mistaken, the great white shark and whales to survive. They just need so much space, and it would just cost billions of dollars.
I mean, couldn't it be miraculous that they would like fit into a small space?
Yeah, like I said, I already alluded to that, that
Yeah,
Hashem, why would He go out of His way to do that if He could just simply allow them to exist in their natural environment,
understood.
albeit it would just be in the lower water as opposed to the higher water, what would be too hot for them. So even nowadays, they try doing it in aquariums. It didn't work. They just die. They go crazy, and there's not enough room. They need a tremendous amount of room, and you wouldn't even be able to view it because they just need so much room. These creatures are huge, and they travel very, very far and fast, and they're very strong and very complicated. So, anyways, it's something to think about how this world, how we know so little of it, that the majority of the world is all covered by water. And we're going hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands of miles into space, into different planets, and we still haven't even covered everything that exists in the water. It's amazing how Hashem created this world and how much truly exists over here. But anyways, these are some interesting insights I thought as to why the fish, how they survived over there. Okay.